Up change. Kornheiser could not make it to Thursday.
Now batting, fill-in Frank.
What is this? You brought like John Sterling with you? You got the
Little homage
Yankee
to Bob
Stadium?
Shepard. Pine tar on that bat.
That'd be good. The pine tar on the bottom.
Where's your boy John Lester? I'll take a couple of cuts off of him.
Just this week.
Lester.
Just this week. He'll get fixed. He'll
All right.
fix himself.
We'll see.
You watch. Welcome to PTI with Kornheiser recovering from 3 straight days of work. I'm joined by our great friend from The Athletic, Mr. Frank Isola.
Wow. Good to be back with you.
That's pretty good. Pine tar, though. We got pine tar. We begin with Kevin Durant's at-length discussion of his Achilles injury, which took him out of the NBA Finals. There was constant assertion at the time, much of it from folks on this network, that Durant was pressured into playing by the Warriors management and or the medical staff. Durant told Yahoo's Chris Haynes, "That's BS." Among other things, KD said, quote, "How can you blame the Warriors? Nobody ever said a word to me during rehab as I was coming back," close quote. He also said it was always going to be the Nets and no place else as a free agent. Frank, what jumps out at you from KD's rather pointed remarks?
Michael, I think the part about not blaming the Warriors, you and I were in Toronto that night. He's limping off the court, and I think right away, the way the fans felt, the Golden State Warrior fans felt about Kevin Durant was a lot different. It was, all right, you won a championship, but you were willing to come out here and risk everything, and you did. It looks like you have an Achilles injury. That's what it turned out to be. It was also smart on his part. The Warriors have already come out and said that we're going to retire your number.
Right.
So why would Kevin Durant, he got his money. He's a free agent. He left. He could have come back to the Warriors and gotten even more money. It's not like he's DeMarcus Cousins where he was sitting on a max deal and that didn't happen. So why be bitter at this point? Yes, you're losing a season of your career. That's terrible. But financially and in terms of your image, it's never been better.
Frank, I agree with all of that. And I was annoyed at the time because I just thought we didn't know enough.
Yes.
Because Kevin hadn't talked. He said a couple of words to reporters he knows, but off the record. And then I remember asking Draymond Green that night, of the injury, or actually a little less. Who do you blame? And he said, "I'm tired of the narrative. I'm tired of the narrative that it's the Warriors' fault." He goes, "I'm there. Kevin Durant wants to play basketball as desperately as anyone I've ever known." He named one other childhood friend of his who was in the Durant neighborhood of wanting to play. And so that stood out to me because we needed to have some resolution on that. Either the Warriors did pressure him or they didn't. Now,
when you say Warriors pressuring him, are you talking about players? Or because that's what some people were saying up in Toronto, that it was some players.
I think the culture always pressures athletes to play, right?
Yeah.
They pressure themselves. That's the culture. That's the profession they have chosen. But I think this needed to be put to bed because I think that any more discussion of it was damaging. It was disingenuous. And now for people who want to say, "Well, I don't believe that." Well, I believe Kevin Durant's a liar.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to believe what comes out of Kevin Durant's mouth. I believe Kevin Durant.
Was it always the Nets, you think? I think Kyrie Irving kind of said, if Kyrie Irving had said, "I want to go to the Knicks," I think Kevin Durant might have gone there. But give the Nets credit. They've done a good job establishing a culture. They have something that they're building there with a lot of good young players.
He must have felt that way, or why go?
Exactly.
He left money on the table to go. He must feel pretty good about the Nets, right?
You're right. You're right. Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence and his golden locks could become the face of, wait for it, the XFL. Lawrence, he's already won a national championship and is a top Heisman Trophy candidate, but he's not eligible to be drafted by the NFL until 2021, which is why former NFL executive Mike Tannenbaum speculated on Get Up this morning that Vince McMahon's league could attempt to wrestle Lawrence away from college football after the upcoming season with a lucrative contract. The XFL is looking for brand recognition, and as you know, Michael, Lawrence has star potential, so would it be smart business for the league to go all in on Lawrence?
Yes, no question.
Yeah.
But it's a more important question to me that demands more discussion. And that is, would it be smart for this young quarterback who stands to make more than $150 million?
Yeah.
And that's just salary. We go with endorsements and his charisma. So is he going to do that for what, $650,000, $800,000? I suppose it was $1 million for a year in the XFL. He's supposed to put all this at risk to play behind or with a line that might not even be able to protect him for a game. Would it be smart business for him? And the answer is a resounding no.
Yeah. Well, if you're Vince McMahon, you got to try to offer anything you can.
Yes.
This would be a great guy to add to your league. And you and I have been around long enough to know Jim Kelly, was in the USFL. Steve Young, your good buddy, both those guys went to the Hall of Fame. So nobody really remembers that they played in what would be considered a second-tier football league.
This league, though, in the category, here's a question I have, because you're right about those guys, and more. Reggie White.
Yeah.
And we were talking quarterback, mostly Herschel Walker. But is the XFL potentially the same sort of league in terms of the depth and quality as...
It seems like a gimmick.
Okay, as the USFL and, of course, the AFL.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing, too, for Trevor Lawrence, and I think about this with Zion Williamson. He could, there were players that went to the G League or went overseas. How did going to college for 1 year help Zion Williamson in terms of building his brand? Trevor Lawrence being at a place like Clemson, where you play for national championship, he's going to be one of the biggest names in college football.
The biggest.
How'd it work out for Kyler Murray last year at Oklahoma?
Worked out pretty well. Frank, he's going to be the biggest name this year in college football. I guess somebody can come out of nowhere, like Kyler Murray sort of did.
For him,
still,
he's better off staying.
Absolutely. Frank, let's go from the sublime to the ridiculous, specifically the pathetic Baltimore Orioles and their continued epic losing, giving way to a dugout dust-up between new manager Brandon Hyde and one-time star Chris Davis. Hyde decided to pinch hit Davis in the fifth, and Davis, who entered the game hitting 183, goes ballistic, has to be physically restrained from going after his skipper. Hyde said all the predictable junk afterward about keeping it in-house and how the two have a good relationship, blah, blah, blah. Frank, baseball has more of these kinds of disputes in any sport, it seems. Are you with Hyde, this is no big deal, or is it indeed a big deal?
I think it's a big deal when it's a guy that's making that much money. He's got $69 million coming to him over the next 3 years. But when you're at 38 and 76, these things are going to happen. I love the fact, let's keep it in-house. It's happening in the dugout during the game. It's out of your house. It's happening in front of everybody, and it's on television. But, Chris Davis has had a rough go. But to me, I'm not, but the idea of maybe like releasing him, you can't do that until the offseason. You got to try to trade him. That's $69 million. If you do trade him, you're going to have to eat some of that money still. That's why
sending some of that money to the team you trade him to.
He has struck out 110 times this year. All he does is strike out.
The fall off for him as just a terrific power hitter to a guy you don't even want to hit in the fifth inning after one at bat he had struck out. That's sort of unthinkable without some sort of injury or illness, and we don't know of that. But this is about losing. That's what this is.
Of course.
The Baltimore Orioles, look, I covered that team on a daily basis back in the early and mid-'80s when people talked about the Oriole way. And you had guys like Eddie Murray and Cal Ripken, big-time first-ballot Hall of Famers, surrounded by tremendous players who put in this great effort and had pride and played with an intelligence. We are so far away from that, and it starts with ownership. But no matter what happens, you have this kind of losing. It festers. There are open sores, and we saw that happen last night.
But here's the thing. They're playing the Yankees, and what about just the way baseball has gone now? The Yankees have had 52 home runs in 15 games against the Orioles.
Yeah.
They have hit 43 home runs at Camden Yards. That's more than the Tigers and more than the Giants have hit in their home park. The Yankees have more home runs in Camden Yards than those two teams have at home, and that's in 10 games.
It tells us how bad the Orioles are.
Come on.
But it doesn't. That does not speak to what happened in that dugout last night. The anger, the frustration, the professional pride swirling down the toilet.
You don't think looking over your shoulder as the ball's leaving the park?
You know what? It didn't matter who hit them. It doesn't matter whether it's a record. They're getting their butts kicked day after day, and they're pros.
The Yankees
and it's
are
embarrassing.
Eating on the ball.
You know what that would be? That would be embarrassing in Little League.
No, it would be, absolutely.
I played on a 1-17 team one year when
Did you fight your manager?
I tried. Mr. Samuel.
Because he took you out or he wouldn't put you in?
You know what he did? He stuck it out, and we went 17-1 the third year.
See?
How about that?
Have some faith sometimes. Carmelo Anthony, who was still without an NBA job, recently inquired about rejoining the United States national team, only to be rejected by Jerry Colangelo, who is the managing director of USA Basketball. He told SI.com that Melo was interested in a roster spot on the World Cup team, but he was told that the program was moving forward with a younger group. Michael, was the U.S. team wrong for turning away a player who has helped them win 3 Olympic gold medals?
Bronze in 04, gold in 8, 12, and 16.
Yep.
And he was an integral part of what they did. Is it wrong? No. Would it have been a nice story?
Of course.
Yes. Would I have liked to have seen it? Probably. I would like to see Carmelo have that. Because if he had that and went out in some sort of victorious way, he might not even need what's beyond that.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it might help him get a step beyond that back to an NBA roster. I wish it had happened that way, but I understand why not. I said to Tony yesterday, because Tony just wants stars. He wants a team full of Carmelos. And I'm saying, look, that's not the way Pop is going with this team. This team, to me, could very well be, if they play well together, and particularly if they win, the guts of the next Olympic team. And they weren't going to include Carmelo, Frank. You and I know that.
But then, next year, Anthony Davis might want to play, Steph Curry, a lot of the big name guys.
Do you think those guys have to play?
I think some of them, they're going to let some of them play, especially, how they do this summer in China.
Right.
Now, here's the thing about Carmelo Anthony. When you think about him on the Olympic team, that's when everyone loves Carmelo.
Yes.
That's Carmelo coming off the bench. That's Carmelo filling a role, a scoring role. I think for him, it was a smart play to want to ask. Now, his camp is not crazy that it got out there that he was rejected, but I think for Carmelo, you're telling everyone, I know I'm doing this interview, but I'm also, with Stephen A. like you did, tell people you want to play, but here you are reaching out to USA Basketball. I'm ready to play. I think everything he's doing is telling all the teams out there, I'm serious about playing, and I'm willing to take any role, which is the role that he always took on USA Basketball.
It was the best of Carmelo Anthony. And by the way, what's bad about the best of you being representing your country and playing? Look, that 04 team was a disaster.
Pop was an assistant coach.
I know. He remembers all that, but
and
I know they got a bronze in 04, but that doesn't capture what happened with that team. That team was a disaster. And they came back in 8, 12, and 16, and Carmelo was at the center of that. And remember how different it was? Remember how the joy around Carmelo in those games and in those competitions? Yes, I'd like to see it, but I understand if they've moved on. I do.
The 04 team, by the way, the NBA players had never lost a game in the Olympics. They lost to Puerto Rico, Lithuania, and then Argentina.
Yeah.
The NBA players had never lost. They lost 3 games in Olympic
And they were bad games. I was there. Those games were awful.
The Puerto Rico game, the first one, not good.
Preseason football really kicks off tonight with 11 games, and therefore plenty of opportunities for mischievous players and coaches to test the implementing of the new pass interference review rules. Bears backup quarterback Chase Daniel even went as far as to say he'd like to launch a Hail Mary during the very first series of tonight's game to see how tightly replay officials are going to call this thing. Frank, do you have any objection to Daniel or anybody else who might try to manipulate the new pass interference governance?
Do I have a problem with Bill Belichick on 4th down, hustling his punt team out there and then catching the other team with too many men on the field? This is what teams do. They try to manipulate the rules. So he's talking about maybe in the first half of a game, because you could lose a timeout if you don't win the challenge. So what if it's 3rd and 20? And you decide, let's just throw the ball down the field. If it gets incomplete, we'll punt. If they intercept it, it's like a punt, and who knows? Maybe on something like this, a Hail Mary, they might call pass interference. I think when it gets replayed, though, when you throw a challenge flag on a lot of these Hail Marys, I think the referee's instincts are going to be, everyone's jostling for the ball. It's like going up for a rebound in the NBA.
We're not calling that. That's what I think is going to happen. And I think if Chase Daniel wants to waste his time, which ought to be figured out how to complete a pass, because the Bears may need him like they needed him, I guess it was 2 years ago when Trubisky got hurt for a little bit. I mean, that's a waste of time. Because now you're just saying, we got nothing better to do, and you do. You know what? March downfield and get in position for one of those kickers auditioning to make a 42-yarder.
Get a little bit closer.
The Bears have bigger fish to fry than screwing around with the pass interference rules. I think you're going to find out naturally enough, organically, how this is going to be called and how it's going to work.
But this is what happens whenever you have rules like this. Everyone's always trying to beat the system. Last week, Denver, early in the game, they challenged a pass interference call against them. They just wanted to do it.
They just lost the timeout.
And the call was upheld.
The call was upheld. You watched the Hall of Fame game?
It was a big game. I was on the show the next day. They wanted me to do some, actual research.
I'm on the show, and I
We're watching all the games tonight. We're going to go to a bar, watch on all the TVs.
We'll get back into that, too. Let's take a break. But coming up, who's more likely to make a positive first impression tonight? Kyler Murray or that Daniel Jones kid from Duke?
See, preseason football. And which kid Pirates fan was more impressive last night? Or silly?
This is more impressive to me. Not close.
I'm keeping the ball.
Not close.
I'll give the ball.
I'm Ryan.
got these guys. Daniel Jones, his drafting was sort of unpopular in your neck of the woods by the New York Football Giants. Kyler Murray's very popular, and everybody's talking Larry Fitzgerald most notably about how terrific he's looked so far early. I'm going to give in with convention and say Murray. He can make plays with his feet, even if he's not completing passes. You expect him to just look like he has a little more pop.
Well, I think Murray, there's a lot more pressure on him because you expect him to start the season. I think for Daniel Jones, and you're right, all the controversy about the Giants drafting this poor kid, I think him going to Duke probably had something to do with it. The fact that it's Duke, a non-traditional football school. But I think he's going to come in this game tonight. He's not going to start, I don't believe. And Eli Manning, New York is ready to move on from Eli Manning. And I think Daniel Jones is going to fit in perfectly as the backup quarterback, that if he does a couple little things, he's actually looked pretty good in practice.
So Manning's going to start and take, 10 snaps and then get him out of there?
A couple of
series.
Giants-Jets tonight, by the way.
What's next?
Toss-up, more likely to win the Premier League, Man City or the Field?
All right, I'm actually excited for the second time now about the Premier League. Because I was there a couple of years ago when the league started, and we think the start of an NFL season is big here. Please, it's peanuts compared to the start of the Premier League. I am going with the Field, and I'm taking Manchester United over Man City. Pogba is still there. They didn't get rid of him. Harry Maguire, they got the great defender. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Very good.
He's been there a little while now. By the way, he's very stylish.
Yes.
I'm going with Manchester United. I'm going with them and all their 13 championships.
You know, I'm going to go with the Field as well. By the way, Liverpool opens the season tomorrow against Norwich City.
Picking Liverpool?
They've never. I know it really should be Man City, but Liverpool never won a Premier League title since it became the Premier League. But I think for Man City, the title that Pep Guardiola, the manager there, wants to win, they want to win Europe. They want to win a Champions League. So Liverpool wants to win the Premier League. Man City wants to win Champions League.
Isn't this the most
That's what they'll be focused on.
Prestigious league championship
By the way,
in
last
the world
year,
of sport?
97 points for Liverpool. They finished 1 point behind Man City for the title.
It's going
to be a great season.
I'm paying attention. Aren't you impressed?
Absolutely.
For real.
For real. 3 o'clock.
What's next?
Last one, toss-up, more impressive Pirates fan, the ball thrower or the finger wagger?
I mean, people got a little crazy at the Pirates game last night. I mean, for one, you got this kid who you'll say, I guess he's a kid. When I was watching this last night, I thought he was an adult, right? But first, this kid, catches the ball. So you got that. And you got another situation where he turns around and he just throws it clear out of the stadium, a la my man on Cleveland, the relief pitcher.
Trevor Bauer.
Chucked it, Trevor Bauer.
From the mound.
And you're going to see this. This is great. Just boom, left-handed throw. Isn't that impressive? I like him.
But why? I mean, if you get a ball, why would you do that? And the finger wag, but remember, though, that belongs to one guy. That belongs to
Dikembe?
Mutombo, absolutely. But have you seen what the Pirates have done? They've completely fallen apart in the second half of the season. 18 games, under 500. That's the worst they've been since Clint Hurdle's first year.
Thuggish behavior has now caught up with them.
It takes two to tango. That's the Reds' fault just as much.
No.
The Reds pitcher ran into their
I'm talking about the Pirates all year. I know you New Yorkers, you and Kornheiser don't pay attention to that.
They've gotten into 2 fights with the Reds.
Thugs. What's next? Oh,
That's it. You want more?
I wanted another one.
Because you knew he was losing.
Thanks for losing, Frank. Let's take one last break, but still to come. We'll recap Tigers' first round in the FedEx Cup playoffs. Ain't much to recap.
And Kelly Bryant played in 4 games for Clemson last season, so why isn't he getting a title ring? Seems a little unfair.
Well, 4 games.
And you did leave.
Playing soccer for me has always been a getaway from what I'm seeing in my normal life. As a first-year coach, I was trying to provide my kids with scrimmages and practice football.
narrowly ahead of Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic. But Federer isn't necessarily done. He won the Aussie Open last year, and in 17 he won Aussie Open and Wimbledon. Problem is, he's not faring well in New York at the end of these seasons where he hasn't won in 11 years, Frank.
He had 2 match points at Wimbledon on serve. I still don't think he's gotten over that. On serve, and he couldn't complete it.
A less than happy anniversary to the Chicago White Sox. On this day 43 years ago, the White Sox made their hot pants debut, which has to be the worst moment in the history of baseball fashion. Okay, we could stomach the 1890s throwback look. I'm good with that. But the tight shorts worn by the likes of Ralph Garr and Chet Lemon and Bucky Dent and Goose Gossage are not to be forgotten and fortunately never to be duplicated. Frank, you're not even old enough to remember this.
I remember that awful softball look. Back then, a lot of teams were in ugly uniforms. Even your Cubs, the Padres,
Not the Cubs,
the Giants.
The Cubs had the same uniforms. The Cubs. Stop them changing.
Road uniforms.
Happy trails to Billy Hamilton taking third base on this medium deep fly ball to center field in Fenway. Jackie Bradley Jr. gets plenty of momentum as he makes the catch and fires a one-hop throw to get one of the fastest, if not the fastest base runner in the game today. Frank, every time we have one of these, I ask Kornheiser if JBJ is in the class of Mantle and or Mays defensively.
Ooh.
And he goes crazy, so I hope he sees this and starts to think,
By the way, though, does he have a great center fielder name?
JBJ,
come on.
Jackie Bradley Jr., yes, he's great.
By the way, Red Sox 16 games out of first place on the
I know
Yankees.
that makes you happy.
16
we had a
games.
couple of errors. Chris Davis had 111 strikeouts.
I said
110.
110.
Frank,
Come on.
Yeah, you're way off. And Trevor Bauer is a starter. I keep making him reliever. We're running out of show. Let's get to the big finish. The Browns traded Duke Johnson to the Texans for a 4th rounder. Is that a big deal?
It's a conditional 4th round. It could be a 3rd round pick. Tiger Woods finished +4 today. Come on, break it down.
He's hurting. He can't play.
It's in Jersey City, by the way.
Kelly Bryant played in 4 games for Clemson last season, but Dabo Swinney says he left the team, doesn't get a ring. Is that fair?
They demoted him, and then he left.
Yeah.
Why would he get a ring? That's what Dabo Swinney said. Nick Bosa has a high ankle sprain. It's going to keep him out the entire preseason. Is that a big
I
deal?
want my rookies to practice at least a little. Yankees and the White Sox will play 1 game next season at the Field of Dreams in Iowa. You like that?
Absolutely.
What if the White Sox
Can we have a catch? That's what you
What if
say.
the White Sox wear hot pants?
No, not good.
Oh, okay.
Kevin Costner will be there throughout the first pitch. We're out of time. Thanks for watching.